Hello and a very warm welcome to this year-ender special from India's stunning 2-1 win down under, CSK's fourth IPL title, Joe Root and Mohammad Rizwan's Test and T20I aggregates to Australia's maiden World T20 title. We look at 21 numbers which defined the cricketing calendar in 2021. And to look at that, I have with me my colleague Nikhil Narayan here. So let's get straight into it. At number one, what else but India's historic chase at the Gabba, 329 for 7. India defied history and odds to gun down 328 on day 5 at the Gabba to win the series 2-1. It was their second successive series win down under, and in terms of the circumstances, a great one, Nikhil. We've got to start with that because the year started with that incredible win. And to think that it was done at a ground like Gabba, which was a fortress for the Australians.
Yes, Maya. India breached Fortress Gabba at the start of the year. Australia hadn't lost in Brisbane in 32 years. It was one of the most dominating home grounds for any team in Test cricket history. India had previously chased, I think, 233 in Adelaide. That was the highest fourth innings total in Australia. They didn't have half their team. Bumrah, Shami, Ishant Sharma, everyone is injured. Virat Kohli had gone back to attend the birth of his first child. And yet, against all odds, they chased down 300 on the last day. Rishabh Pant with that fantastic unbeaten 89. Shubman Gill scored 90 odd, gave us a fantastic start. Only the third time in India's Test cricket history that they gunned down above 300 in the fourth innings. Historic.
That's right. And the highest successful chase by a visiting team at the Gabba was 170 for 3 by England in 1978. Then to go and chase down 328 on day 5 from what, it was an incredible performance by this Indian team. Let's move on then to number 2. And on number 2, we have number 1, Australia's maiden triumph at the World T20. Australia defied form and forecasts to lift their maiden World T20 title. They beat New Zealand in the final in Dubai. David Warner had a point to prove. He was the highest impact player, the second highest run getter, in fact. And what a incredible performance, Nikhil. Nobody had Australia even in their semi-finalists going into the tournament. Australia didn't have a good record, but the turnaround.
Absolutely. Before the start of the marquee event, Australia were given a 2% chance of winning the tournament. That is by most cricket analysis pundits and most stat systems. They had lost 13 matches in the last 2 years. The win-loss ratio was only 0.8. It was amongst the worst in the world. And the way they turned around, absolutely unexpected, stunning win by Australia. David Warner, after what transpired in the IPL with SRH, and then Adam Zampa, he turned out to be the best bowler, the second highest wicket taker of the tournament. Another stunning performance by Australia, which, might see the transformation of this Australian unit into a great one.
Yes, and then Australia annihilating England in the Ashes. That's at number 3, 3-0. Australia routed England in Brisbane, Adelaide and Melbourne to wrap up the Ashes in under 12 days in what was one of the most humiliating defeats for the visitors in the Ashes history. And to think that England dismissed for under 204 out of their 6 innings. You expected Australia to dominate, but England to just completely, cave in. That was unexpected, Nikhil.
Shocking performance by England, Meha. Their worst batting performance in over 100 years. Their combined average in this Ashes series was less than 18. Abysmal, absolutely appalling by England. They were dismissed for less than 200 in 4 of the 6 innings they've batted in these 3 tests. And they stooped to a new low after getting bowled out for 68 at the MCG. Their lowest total in Australia in 117 years. What happened with England, Meha, is that they transformed into a world-class limited overs unit, winning the 2019 World Cup in England. Also, they are the number 1 T20 side in the world. But they have, not paid attention to Test cricket, which is synonymous with English cricket. And therefore, currently, they're ranked number 6 in the world. They have amongst the worst batting units in the world right now.
That's right. Let's move on then. At number 4, it's 161. That's the number we're talking about. And that is Rohit Sharma's stunning 100 in Chennai. India were trailing 0-1 in the 4-match home series against England. And they were in trouble. They'd lost early wickets in the second test in Chennai. Rohit Sharma then producing one of the most magical hundreds in Indian conditions and carried on that form really. But how good has Rohit Sharma been in 2020 when he can be so proud of the way he has batted throughout this year?
You know, what has stood out for Rohit Sharma, Meha, not only in this innings, but throughout this year, and since he started opening a couple of years back, is that he has produced those magical innings, the hundreds at the Oval, the 100 in Chennai, the amazing innings after Chennai in Ahmedabad, when the big three have failed, or at least two of the big three have failed. And therefore, this innings, India was 0-1 down. England had beaten us in Chennai in the first match. And they were in pressure in the second match. If they had lost this match, or this match was a draw, India would not have made it to the final of the WTC, and all hell would have broken loose.
That's true.
One of the greatest innings in India by any batsman. He dominated the bowling attack when others could not, lay bat to ball.
That's right. Let's move on to number 5 then. And at number 5, we have number 4. Making sure that you're, kept on your toes, figuring out why at number 5 we have number 4, because Chennai win their 4th IPL title. CSK saw a dramatic transformation from 2020. They went on to lift their 4th IPL title. You can call them Daddy's Army, the old boys club, but MS Dhoni and his old boys registered their 4th win. And yet again, Nikhil, just showing Mahendra Singh Dhoni and his kind of cricket, which is not about laptops and numbers, but about, that gut feeling, about instinct. And what a performance by CSK.
What an amazing, transformation from last year. It was the first year when they did not qualify for the playoffs. And no one gave CSK a chance to win the trophy this year. An amazing performance by CSK. 2 or 3 heroes. The opening partnership, Faf and Ruturaj. Moeen Ali at number 3, pinch hitter and brilliantly restrictive with the ball. And Ravindra Jadeja. Fantastic all-round performance. Also, Shardul Thakur, who was the highest wicket taker this season. Fantastic by CSK.
And great combination of experience and youth with Ruturaj Gaikwad and Faf du Plessis or Moeen Ali. Okay, let's move on to number 6, and we'll just club 6 to 8 together, and then we'll talk about it. Nikhil, at 6 we have 0. The combined hundreds of India's big 3 in Test cricket. It was really a disastrous year for Virat Kohli, Cheteshwar Pujara and Ajinkya Rahane in Test cricket. Did not register a single Test run in 2021 between them in as many as 68 innings. My goodness. At 7, we have 1915, the maximum run aggregate in international cricket. Mohammad Rizwan was the highest run getter in international cricket in 2021, and with an aggregate of 1915 runs in 45 innings at an average of 56.32 with 215 50s. At number 8, the number is 2-1. The series scoreline in favor of India in England. India touring England for a 5-match marquee test series in August. They ended the tour with a 2-1 lead with a 5th and the final test rescheduled due to COVID-19. But Rohit Sharma, yet again, 368 runs. Absolutely magnificent. Nikhil, the one that stands out was clearly the way India played in England.
Absolutely, Meha. 2-1 lead with the final match to be played in Manchester this summer or next summer. 2 standout performances. Rohit Sharma, again at the top of the innings, curbing his natural aggressive game. That century at the Oval, which, gave India a 2-1 lead, was absolutely sensational. And apart from Rohit Sharma, Jasprit Bumrah, who was the highest wicket taker of the series, once again showing, what a brilliant bowler he is, not only in India, but also in Sena countries.
Okay, let's move on then to number 9. It's 1-12. Lucky 13 for Pakistan. They won their first match against India in a World Cup. That's right. They finally got the mauka as they thrashed India by 10 wickets in the T20 World Cup, recording their first ever win against Pakistan ever in a World Cup encounter, including 50 overs and T20 internationals in 13 such innings. Finally, it had to happen at some point. Law of averages had to catch up, but they were completely outplayed. Pakistan were all over India in that one.
Absolutely. Pakistan had a great record in UAE. and Shahenshah Afridi ran through the Indian top order, and then Babar Azam and Mohammad Rizwan completed a magnificent victory by 10 wickets. India's greatest loss in any World Cup encounter, T20 cricket and 50 overs. It was, a very sad day as an Indian fan, but for Pakistan, there were celebrations all over Pakistan. Their first World Cup victory, lucky 13 for them.
That's right. Okay, let's move on to number 10. At number 10, we have 4 out of 5. Yes, that was India and their performance out of 5 series so far in this year. India were the best test side, winning 4 of those series. And actually 4 of 4 if you don't count the South African series, because that is still on, although they went down to New Zealand in the final of the World Test Championship. They were the best team, winning in Australia, England, and then beating England and New Zealand at home. At number 11, it is 635. That's the number. That's the maximum runs in IPL scored by Ruturaj Gaikwad this year. The highest run getter, 635 in 16 matches with 104 50s, blistering form in that UAE leg. That is Ruturaj Gaikwad. At number 12, it is 7 for 61. That is the tall Kyle Jamieson's high-impact performance in the World Test Championship final. Kyle Jamieson bagged 7 wickets in that match to return as the most impactful player in New Zealand's triumph against India. Okay, and we move on now to what would be number 13 or number 13 we have is number 3. That is 10 wickets by a bowler in an innings. That's the number of times this has happened. The 3rd time in Test history. Ijaz Patel entrenched his name in the record books by becoming the 3rd bowler in the history of Test cricket to pick all 10 wickets in a Test match innings. At number 14, before I get to Nikhil, it is 258. Ashwin and Hanuma Vihari's partnership in terms of deliveries at the SCG. What an absolutely brilliant match that turned out to be. The series were tied at 1-1, set 407. India were in a precarious position at 272 for 5 with 42 overs still left in the day's play. An injured Hanuma Vihari joined hands with R. Ashwin and put together a match-saving stand. Absolutely incredible. This is what dreams are made of, Nikhil. That has to be one of the best innings we've seen in Test cricket ever.
Absolutely. That partnership of 258 deliveries, Ashwin had back spasms and Vihari had a limp. And the way they defied a full-fledged Australian bowling unit, Cummins, Hazelwood, Leon, absolutely sensational. India forced a draw, which meant the series scoreline was 1-1, and then the rest is history. I mean, we know what transpired in Brisbane in the match after. Also, the other number which stood out for me was, 4 out of 4 or 4 out of 5. India did not lose a Test series this season. Okay. It was by far the best Test side in the world, winning in Australia, then winning in India, beating England, taking a 2-1 series lead in England, and then the home series win against New Zealand, and they've capped off the year conquering another bastion, another fortress at the Centurion. To me, this Indian Test team, Meha, is the greatest Indian Test team ever.
Yes, I agree with you in that one, and I know that they'll be caught. This is a bit of a debatable topic, and people will have arguments about that. But I agree with you completely with this team having won in Australia, having won in, or at least leading in England, and now have beaten South Africa at home in what looks like a series that they would possibly win quite easily. The final frontier, as people have been saying, I think this team is the best ever in Test matches. Let's move on then to number 15. At number 15, we have the number 6,000. That is the number of runs Virat Kohli has scored in the IPL. He crossed that mountain. He became the first batsman in IPL history to cross the landmark of 6,000 runs. And in fact, this was in a match against Rajasthan Royals at the Wankhede Stadium in Mumbai. At number 16 is the number 32, Harshal Patel's wicket tally in the IPL. Harshal returned a record 32 wickets in 15 matches at an average of 14.34, strike rate of 10.5 in IPL this year. And he was the joint highest in any season of the IPL. Dwayne Bravo had also backed 32. So brilliant performance from Harshal. At 17, we have the number 400, R. Ashwin. He became the second fastest ever to get to 400 Test wickets. Second fastest bowler to reach that milestone on day 2 of the 3rd Test against England in Ahmedabad. He took 77 tests to reach that milestone, broke the record of Sir Richard Hadley and Dale Steyn, who had taken 80 tests to cross that mark. Muthiah Muralidharan just ahead of him in 72 tests. And last, before I get back to Nikhil talking about these moments, is the number 10,000 at 18. That's right, Mithali Raj became the first Indian woman cricketer to reach the 10,000 club. The greatest, one of the greatest ever. Mithali Raj became the first Indian woman cricketer to reach that milestone during an ODI against South Africa. The only other woman who's achieved this feat before was England's Charlotte Edwards. Nikhil, first, let's talk a little bit about Mithali Raj. And why I'm saying this is that not enough gets talked about women's cricket and their achievements, but she can be called the GOAT, the greatest of all time when it comes to Indian cricket.
Absolutely. I mean, she's one of the finest batsmen, at least in Test cricket history, women's Test cricket history. And, scaling Mount 10,000 is no joke. Only the second woman in international cricket history to do so. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, Mithali Raj, deserves the credit. And yes, I mean, women's cricket needs to be given, more recognition.
Okay. And then the other being R. Ashwin and how he's improved over the years. We did a graphic, I don't know, and you can come in on that because I think that was the graphic you told me about how Ashwin's such an improved bowler in Test cricket from 2015 to 2018, right? So, I mean, for him to get to it as the second fastest, you see what an incredible bowler he has been.
Absolutely. Ashwin is India's greatest match winner at home in India's Test cricket history. And I'm saying this with caution. I know people will say there's Anil Kumble, there's Tendulkar, there's Sehwag. For me, it is R. Ashwin. Mm-hmm. Ashwin, his being an off spinner, off spinners have traditionally been restrictive, but he is a wicket-taking off spinner. The only other in his league, or the only other in the same league, is Muthiah Muralidharan. But Muthiah Muralidharan was not a conventional off spinner. He was an off spinner who used his wrists. Right. Ashwin ended the year as the highest wicket taker in Test cricket. 54 wickets he took amongst pacers and spin bowlers. His standout performance was against England at home when he bagged 32 wickets. It was a great year, R. Ashwin. He has so many varieties, so many different deliveries in his repertoire. One of the greatest of all time. And I don't think he'll ever be again dropped for any series anywhere in the world.
I mean, it was a little ironic for Virat Kohli surpassing 6,000 in IPL and announcing his retirement as a captain from the team. And to think that Virat Kohli, as individually as a batsman, has done so well in the IPL, but as a captain, him and his team hasn't done well enough.
Yeah, I mean that's a personal milestone of Virat Kohli. He has been a good T20 batsman for RCB, but I won't say a great batsman. I think the great RCB batsman has been AB de Villiers. Virat Kohli has been a great T20I batsman for India. So a personal milestone, but RCB not winning. I mean, the resignation as captain was due. So
slight bit of nostalgia as well for RCB fans. Would have wanted Virat Kohli to end as his captaincy stint on a high. But let's move on to number 19. And at number 19, we have 1,708. That's the number of runs that Joe Root has scored in a calendar year, overtaking Sachin Tendulkar and Ricky Ponting in Test matches, notwithstanding England's abysmal show in the Ashes. I mean, can you imagine? Here's a man who's got the maximum number of runs in this calendar year, and just how poorly have England done. Joe Root was in scintillating form in Test cricket in 2021, aggregate of 1,708 runs in 15 tests. That's 29 innings at an average of 61 with 600s. And the England captain ended at number 3 on that list of most runs in a calendar year in Test history, behind Mohammad Yusuf and Viv Richards. But that also puts the whole England team in spotlight, their batting unit and how terrible they've been throughout the year, where maximum number of runs have been scored by Joe Root.
Absolutely. There's another stat, Maya, which is that the combined aggregate of Rory Burns, Johnny Bairstow, Ollie Pope and Don Sibley is in 2021 this season was less than the individual aggregate of Joe Root. That is how good Joe Root was and how bad the other England batsmen were. And, England ended the year as, they have the worst win-loss ratio amongst all major teams except Bangladesh and Afghanistan. And that says it all. 3-0 annihilation in the Ashes. But Joe Root was absolutely sensational. England started the year actually on a good note. They beat Sri Lanka in Sri Lanka. And Joe Root produced 2 absolutely brilliant innings in Sri Lanka, 200s. But then, although his form remained, he peaked, but the rest of the batting unit just crumbled.
That's right. Okay, move on to 20. At number 20, we have 0.44. Any guesses to what that is? Well, England's worst win-loss ratio in tests since, percentage in fact, since 2000. England won just 4 and lost as many as 9 of the 15 tests they played in the calendar year. Their win-loss ratio was the worst amongst all major test-playing nations with the exception of Zimbabwe and Bangladesh. It was also their worst win-loss in a calendar year in the new millennium. After starting the year with a bang, registering a fine win, as Nikhil was saying, in Australia, they were hammered by India, lost at home against New Zealand. Just the year kept getting worse for them and now have conceded the Ashes as well. At number 21, our last moment, we have number 24. That's a record number of innings to score 1,000 T20I runs. That's Dawid Malan. He became the fastest to 1,000 T20 international runs, achieving the feat in just 24 innings against India in Ahmedabad on the 20th of March. He broke that record of Babar Azam, who had scaled the 1,000 club in his 26th inning. And Kohli is at number 3 on that list with 27 innings. And that also just goes on to show how red hot was Dawid Malan in T20 internationals. He just kept breaking up the numbers, Nikhil. But yeah, so at 20, England's worst win-loss ratio, which is expected given how badly they performed. At number 21, it's Dawid Malan, the hero for England in T20 internationals.
Absolutely. Also, I would like to add one more number, which can be, the number 2, which is the number of fortresses India has conquered this season. We have to end with that. They started the year conquering the Gabba, where Australia has one of the best records in Test cricket history. They ended the year conquering the Centurion, where South Africa has one of the best records at a home venue in Test cricket history. So, this caps off a great year in Test cricket for Team India.
Absolutely, no doubt about it, for a team to have won a series in Australia right at the beginning of the year and ending this year with a win in Centurion, where India has never won before. What could be better than that? And that sums up our 21 moments. Hope you like these moments. Do you agree with our 21 moments? Would you have liked to add some more, delete some of them? I don't know, write into us, comment below. But Nikhil Narayan, thank you so much for joining in. Well, that's it we have for you on this year-end special. Hope you have a wonderful New Year's Eve and a wonderful New Year ahead. Goodbye. Thanks for watching for now.